talk to people who are building, leading, and transforming their industry every day. And today's guest is someone who spent decades in the intersection of field expertise and strategic execution, someone who understands both what happened on the ground and how to scale it. And Bryan Larson is the Vice President of Integrated Services at ProElectric in Kansas City, an established leader in electrical contracting across healthcare, education, industry sectors, from operational excellence to team integration and service delivery. Bryan has had a hand in shaping how Pro Electric keeps large scale infrastructure running with precision and reliability. Bryan, great to have you with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Um, we are very happy to have you, and let's start a little bit with backstory. Let's start with your journey. What originally drew you into the world of electrical contracting and infrastructure work?
From my perspective, I kind of have a little bit different approach than I think most people in my industry have. When I got done with my high school career, I immediately went into the field as a technician, communications technician, and spent a couple years kind of pulling cable, climbing ladders, crawling through crawl spaces, doing a lot of the hands-on work on what it takes to put some of these systems that we do now in. After a couple years, I did make the decision to go to the University of Missouri to get my electrical engineering degree, and I graduated in 2001 and went straight into a project management role with another large electrical contractor here in Kansas City, and kind of worked my way up through the ranks a little bit. I was a project manager for a few years. Had an opportunity to take over a individual division within the company, and became a division manager, moved my way up to a vice president of the company, even held a position as a chief technology officer. So I've had a pretty interesting career, kind of seeing both sides of the fence, how things actually operate in the field. Understand,
Fantastic.
having the educational background to be able to do the work and design the work and understand it at a different level than probably most engineers in my field would understand, and really just kind of having a good, well-rounded ability to build the project start to finish and really complete the projects uh, with accuracy, with perfection, with doing it right the first time. That's really our goal. We don't want to have to go back and troubleshoot, but just kind of understanding how to get the project done and done right the first time. So
Yeah, it's exactly what I wanted to ask you. You spent over 2 decades at Pro Electric and now serve as a VP of Integrated Services. And
mhm.
can you walk us through um, what that role actually evolved today on a day-to-day basis?
So what we do today right now is we're responsible for the telecommunications or communications technology infrastructure within a commercial industrial construction project. So whether that be in a hospital where we're putting in systems that communicate information about patients' activities, life-saving devices that go into certain facilities that way, fire alarm systems where we can go through and we provide fire protection or detection services to be able to protect a building in the event of fire. So any kind of commercial, large scale, commercial, industrial, residential type facility. And honestly, like the other areas that we work on are in the technology sector is the telecommunications or communications infrastructure that you see to date. A lot of the systems that we install today all sit on the network, and without having a good quality infrastructure um, installed, those are the types of things that can really lead to problems later on down the line. So, my role here is, I do everything from a little bit of project management, a little bit of estimating, but really what I'm trying to do is create a different culture with the field and having the guys, implementing new systems for how we run construction projects. We're doing software integrations now between accounting and estimating and project management. So really, it's kind of a evolving role here at ProElectric as we continue to kind of grow and grow our services. So.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And looking back, uh, what do you think helped you grow and evolve inside the company over the long haul? Uh, what do you uh, what do you wish more people understood about long-term leadership from within?
Well, I think really what it amounts to is really getting your guys involved, like your field technicians, your foreman, your general foreman, having them have some skin in the game. They need to be able to understand where the projects sit, have some an idea of budgetary constraints and having all the information for the project and really giving them all the tools that they need to be able to do the job successfully, whether it's a tester in the field or a application that they use on their phone to track their time, or just giving them just consistent information that they can follow throughout the course of a project. I think one of the things that have always lacked in our area or in our industry in general is that communications pathway from the office to the field. I think a lot of times, by nature of what I've come up through, is the office tends to not give the guys the truth. Like, here's how many hours you have to do the job. Where we're trying to make that difference is we're going to give them all the information, have them have some
That's
accountability, help them pre-plan the project on the front side. So by the time that they hit the ground running on the first day, they have a game plan. They know exactly where they should start. They should have all the materials and equipment and tools that they need on site, and really kind of mobilize the project effectively so we can run pace through the course of construction.
that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Um, let's move on operational challenges and sector insights. Let's talk about um, the field itself. What are
Mhm.
some of the biggest challenges right now in delivering electrical solutions for complex spaces like hospital, or manufacturing plants, or public facilities?
Well, from a field perspective, I think the biggest operational challenge that we have is we're kind of constricted to the medium in which we transfer information. So, from our perspective, there's three different methods of transferring data. One is wireless, through a wireless medium, through glass and fiber optics, or copper, where you have your category cabling. So the standards that are out there currently in the industry, Bixby is a big player, I know, around globally, and they have a pretty set standard on how installations should occur. And I think the more intentional we are about how we go about our installations and paying attention to those standards and installing the infrastructure correctly, allows that medium to actually flow data the way that it should. It's when you have companies or other contractors or technicians that don't pay attention to those little details, whether they, it's I equate it to like a fire hose. If you kink a fire hose, the water is immediately going to stop. It's the same thing with the data cable. If you kink a data cable, that flow of information is going to stop, or it's going to be degraded. So I think our biggest challenge is making sure that these jobs are done complete within the standards that are set forth in our industry, and being able to maximize the bandwidth and the throughput that we can get on that medium that we have available to us at this current time that we're in. Things can change in the future, and we all know that. I mean, I've seen quite the evolution since I first got into the industry to where we're at now. But that's really going to be the biggest constricting component, is that medium that we have, and then how well that medium is installed within a construction project.
Yes, it was changing. It was changing. Um, Pro Electric seems to have found a way to maintain both quality and scale,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
What's your approach to balancing long-term client relationship with project speed and safety and team safety?
Yeah, I think for us, it's education. So making sure that our field technicians are trained, that they have certifications in the particular products that we go to market with, making sure that they are trained. With us being a union contractor, we've developed a lot of programs within the union training facilities that offer these types of certifications and types of things for the field technicians, which is a great way of getting that the information out to the field so they can see that and have hands-on training running through their apprenticeships and those kind of things. So I think educating the people is one. I think that um, 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 I kind of got lost of thought there, Lauren, on that next one. Um,
No, the
I
safety,
think big,
safety
yeah,
and
safety. So
relationship.
yes, so from a safe, so it's kind of the same thing. So education kind of flows into that perspective from a safety as well. So we spend time. So you have twofold. You have the education that comes from the training that the technicians have on our particular products we have. Safety in the field is also another critical aspect. If you don't have correct safety standards in place, it can affect the jobs that you can actually go down and chase and get as part of in our industry. So you can be impacted pretty severely. So we try to make it a weekly process with our personnel that they have safety training, whether it's a toolbox talk, what we use, or any kind of educational materials we have out there. OSHA is a big player over here too. So a lot of our guys are OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 certified. So just really kind of keeping the information in front of them, and as standards change and as safety protocols change, it's important that we keep those guys updated on each one of those pieces.
Fantastic, fantastic. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. And
Mhm.
from your vantage points, where do you see most projects go wrong? And what are the early sign or warning sign you have learned to pay attention to over time?
Well, it's really where a lot of it's kind of interesting where you can see a project can take a little bit different path than what you anticipate initially when you went to put the initial estimate and bids together. There's several factors that can play. If you have a general contractor that's really good at coordination and making sure they have a good set schedule that you can track, usually 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a pretty smooth flowing project. Um, if you deviate from those types of things, or you have a contractor that's not familiar with how a schedule flow is supposed to progress, not paying attention to the different milestones that are within that schedule, as far as when is sheetrock going in, when is the concrete being poured, those types of things, you start missing dates, you're missing components that should be in certain areas that aren't there yet. Now you're going back into existing finishes and having to make those kinds of changes, which which is going to increase the overall cost of the build from your perspective, because once the sheetrocker is done, or once the paint's done, and having to go back and open those walls and things back up, that can create some pretty major issues. So really keeping the track of the scheduling and understanding kind of the dynamics that play there. I think it's interesting, and nowadays they break the projects down in individual task components. We do it on our side of the fence. We understand like the different components that we need to have start to finish and that natural progression of that project. So communicating that to our field technicians and giving them the schedule. That's where I talk about that skin in the game. Giving them some accountability on the front side to be able to plan that ahead of time. That helps you kind of mitigate some of the risks that occur, but that's one of the key points there, is just making sure you're maintaining that schedule and have a good understanding of that. Now, I will say this: when the job starts to change, timing on those changes and how that change occurs, that can all be, also play a big role in how you can see things going wrong. I've had projects that, I'd say, just for instance, I'd have one that'd be $1 million job that comes out with $500,000-600,000 worth of changes. Like, you get to that level of change in that particular type of a project, and then they don't want to move the schedule much, then you really have to start paying attention to, okay, we have to work overtime, or there's some things that have to occur there to stay on top of that. So it just really, I think that's probably the most detrimental part, is just not keeping a good handle on the schedule and understanding the tasks of when they have to occur. So,
Very, very, very insightful. Thank you, thank you. Very. Let's. I'd like to move on to uh, innovation or integration tech. Your title is VP of Integrated Services with which suggests that you're looking at project more holistically. What does your you're looking at project? What does your the integration mean to you in this context?
Well, for me, integration is just like you all systems converging within a project. We handle so many different types of systems here at Pro Electric, from the electrical construction where we're setting our electrical distribution panels, bringing in electrical service into the building,
Yeah,
to powering our IT closets, where you have all your network infrastructure that's going out throughout the building, throughout the course of the project. To our and we have a controls division here as well, and they do a lot of high-end controls work, whether it's robotics or those types of things. And you're really starting to see all these systems converge, and we sit kind of right in the middle between those two things, without having the network infrastructure and the power coming into the building, the control systems that are out there to control different industrial style projects, and really all these systems, like you really are seeing everything kind of converge within the network. So we kind of sit right in the middle of the entire construction project. You honestly cannot bring the project up online and functioning unless you have a fully scalable network that's installed properly with those type of things. Because from camera
of
systems to
course.
access control systems to like I mentioned about the robotics, to building management systems. You have all these different components that kind of mesh and converge within the network, and that's really kind of the world that we sit in, which is why we have the integrated services division. We kind of bridge that gap between each of these individual components within our company, but also we are able to talk with the end user and having a good understanding of what they have, what they're trying to accomplish, and be able to provide them with a solution that best suits their needs.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, are there tools or systems or workflow you have helped implement that have really changed how your team operates in the field?
Oh, absolutely. We have, one of the things that when I first got here to Pro, they were in the midst of starting to do some software upgrades, and they started with an accounting program. Meshing that accounting program and bringing it in with our estimating, with our project management software, bringing all those three things together. So that way our field has a tool to be able to use to understand how many hours they have in the job. They can have all the documentation they need for the project, whether it's submittal information, whether it's design drawings, schematics, product information, just anything that they have. Just having a centralized platform where all this information flows through really is kind of revolutionized our industry. Even from time reporting, now I'm back when I first got into the industry, there were still fax machines. You had to fax the timesheet in, and just kind
Yeah,
of, for instance, now
yeah,
what we have is an application that sits on a tablet or your iPhone or your mobile device, whatever that device is, and the guys can enter that information in, pretty expeditiously through an application, and that just makes the flow of information go a lot quicker. There's just not as many delays in getting information into the field as there used to be. Um, it's really a good it's really good to see kind of that development and those things kind of merge together, because now you understand where the job sits. You can reference it back to scheduling. You can reference it back to different tasks that you have to complete the work, and then understand how many hours and how much material and cost and those type of things you have available to you to spend for each one of those individual tasks. So it's just really kind of revolutionized how the industry operates, and really makes the flow of information pretty efficient.
yeah, exactly. Technology is everything today, and how technology, whether it is smart systems or energy efficiency or even AI.
Mhm.
Um, how is technology starting to show up in your world, and where do you think it has the most potential?
It's interesting. There's always you still kind of have to have that human factor into the mix, because at the end of the day, in the world we live in, we work with with personnel, with employees in the field that have to actually physically do the work to be able to build these construction projects. However, you're seeing a lot more efficiencies kind of come through from one of the things I'm seeing now is how we can get a set of floor plan drawings and the different segments of the project, whether it's architectural, structural, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, the different components there. What you see is a AI is actually being able to do a lot of the takeoff. Like they can go through and identify device legends and count devices on drawings for you, so you speed up that estimating process. That information can be directly correlated into an estimating program fairly quickly. And that helps to be able to generate numbers and turn numbers around a little bit quicker for a client if they're, in a hurry, or they just need to understand how much something needs to cost to decide whether or not they want to do that or not. So you're seeing a lot of those types of things coming through here. I think also too, AI is a way to better improve communications and how people communicate with each other. A lot of
Awesome.
times, you're setting tones in text messages, or you're just kind of, it's really hard to kind of get through some of that. But having AI there as an assistant to help kind of clean some of those items up is great. Another thing too is we have a lot of moving parts consistently. So having like devices that can record and actually transcribe information and set schedules. There's to do items after a meeting. If you can record that instead of sitting there and having to go through and take notes for meetings, you can get the meeting transcribed, and it will assign actionable tasks that you can distribute out to your people accordingly. So just a lot of different things that I'm seeing right now from an AI perspective that are starting to come to fruition in the construction industry. Pretty cool to
Wonderful.
see.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's moving so fast, but hopefully in the right direction. Um, I wanted to ask you about team or culture about the company and your people. One thing that stand out about Pro Electric is the focus on team longevity and internal promotion. What's the secret to keeping people engaged and loyal over the long term?
Honestly, it's just showing that you care. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you're a hands-off manager or leader, I don't consider myself a manager. I'm more in the leadership aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Having letting the guys know, letting the team know that you care, that you're there for them, that you're when they come across a difficult situation, you're there to help support them, or you're help to help lead that charge, to help resolve whatever issue that may arise. They can feel at times that they're kind of hung out on an island. So by themselves, and that especially on a project, I've got this job, I can hand it off to a guy, and then you just kind of hands off, and you don't really communicate or talk to those people. At the end of the day, a lot of my team members just want to understand that you actually care about what they're doing, and that you appreciate what they're doing, because it's hard work. At the end of the day, I've been there. I know I've done it myself for several years, so I get the work and some of the dynamics that are at play when you're out there on a job. And it does feel like sometimes you're out of line, especially when you're not getting a good flow of communication or information from the office. So I think really just making sure that the people understand that you care, that you're looking out for their best interest, giving them the ability to provide feedback. And I think a lot of people take this like, I know the best because I'm in the leadership role, or I'm in the management role. I know better than you. Well, that's not always the case. Taking that information and really doing something with it, rather than just saying and kind of throwing it to the wayside later on. You can really, really kind of build a good rapport with those guys. And at the end of the day, that's really what gets them to stay loyal is that relationship that you build with them throughout the course of time, and just being there for
That's wonderful. Yeah, exactly. Listening and feedback is so important.
them.
Um, what will surprise someone about the culture at Pro Electric compare to the stereotype of a typical contracting company?
Well, I think it's interesting. In my experience in working for a large electrical contractors, and being involved in the past, I've seen a lot of interdepartmental conflict. So, this particular project, I may have a job with my internal team, and there's this conflict between the teams about, my project looks good, you're making my project look bad, and there's this kind of back and forth kind of conflict that you have. And it's been one of those things that's been fairly prevalent in our industry here in this area for quite some time. What we're doing differently now is we're not, that's not an issue. Like, we are all on the same boat, rowing the same way. We all have a mission to accomplish and a job to do, and everybody is on the same page in what it's going to take to do that job. And you don't have a lot of that conflict internally that you would see at some other contractors that are around there, at least from my past experience. So I feel like having that good flow of communication, relationships internally, and those dynamics is really what sets us apart from some of our competition. And the fact that we are being more proactive about how we want to go about building a project, like what our methodology is going to be, what our standards are, and just really making sure that we have a good solid team. And also, at the end of the day, we try to encourage development. So, like, if we have younger apprentices that are starting to learn and see these the change in dynamics and how the field operates and how they communicate, given and them following that process and learning and how to kind of get into the kind of mold that we're trying to build with our technicians and our electricians, I think is and rewarding them for that, I think is also a good benefit. But I think really just to improve communications between departments, no more inter-company conflict, and really just trying to work well together so we can all finish that job and all make the company look good, not you look good or I look good, make the entire company look good.
Makes sense. A lot of sense. Perfect, perfect. Let's zoom out a little bit and look
Sure.
at the industry level outlook and leadership insights. Um, Looking ahead to 2025, um, what are the biggest trends or pressure you see shaping the future of your industry?
Well, I think for us, you're really going to see a big push on software integrations and how we operate, like business wise. So I think that's going to be, and I think as most people can attest to, change is difficult, especially when you're dealing with an industry that has a lot of people that are pretty set in their ways. They've come up through different paths and how they've gotten to their point in their careers now, and just those adaptive changes, I think, are going to, as you see them, are going to be the biggest kind of challenge that we're going to be facing here with 2025. So that getting people to convert, getting people to understand, more comfortable with operating computers and their phone applications. The younger generation, what I've noticed, especially with the younger technicians, it's not a problem. Like, they jump on that real quick. It's just we've got this, we can do this. This is how we operate. And I'm fortunate to have some young children that are in the workforce now, which is also you kind of see them adapt and really understand that ever changing technological aspect that we have, just from a software perspective or device perspective, is really kind of is really kind of cool to see. So I think for us, the biggest thing is going to be how we go to market, and how we operate, and how that internal flow of information is achieved.
Of course, data is very important. Um, and if you had a chance to influence one big change in mindset or policy or practice across
Mhm.
the entire electrical or construction sector, what will it be, and why?
And honestly, my first inclination is just to say we need to get some people into the trades. You know, we have an opportunity here where we can bring, a lot of the electricians and technicians that go through the training programs that we have available to us. They're coming out, they're getting paid to go to work. They're getting paid as they're working, as they're going through school. So they'll take classes once or twice a week. They'll do different kind of certification programs, those types of things. And by the time they get done with their training program, which is either a 4 to 5 year program, depending on which program that you're in, you're making close to a 6-figure salary, and the opportunity for overtime and other things can just kind of push that on through. Not to mention, one of the biggest things about being a union contractor is that they have an electrical side, they have a fully funded pension plan, which you do
Hmm.
not see that anywhere and especially around the
That's
states
interesting.
nowadays. It's just not something that exists.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
how this program's been developed and the opportunity that's there is getting that out in front of a lot of these high school kids that are coming out and just trying to make the decision. Do I want to go to college? Do I want to? What do I want to do with my career? What's my next move? This really getting the word out that there's a great opportunity here, and having those, getting them involved, recruitment wise, giving them education, because a lot of kids, younger generation, especially these days, they don't realize the opportunity that's out there, because I think a lot of that press is like, let's college, 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 and it's sometimes college isn't always the answer. I mean, that was the path I decided to take, but mine was kind of a mesh. I figured out what I wanted to do by doing a little bit of work in the field and decided, okay, this is the industry I wanted to go into. So I really feel like, getting a good solid presence with a lot of our younger generation, younger people out there, let them know there's a really good opportunity to make a really decent living, getting into these types of trades prevents a lot of the college debt that you see a lot of people go into, and just a lot of things that you can gain from getting this industry, and getting that word out. I think is critical. It's crucial for us, especially as we
Makes
as
sense.
just survival of the industry. We're always going to need workers.
No, definitely, definitely advice. And yeah, no, exactly. My question was, what advice would you give to someone early in their career who's interesting in this type of work, but doesn't know where to start?
Well, it's there's nothing wrong with trying different things.
Yeah,
There's programs that we have in place on our side of the fence where we can bring in people to give it a shot. We have an installer that we can bring in, give them an opportunity to give it a try in the field, come in as a summer helper if they're in between breaks, or if there's just different aspects that they have an opportunity to really give it a shot, just trying things. You may try the electrical industry and say, well, that's not necessarily going to work for me. You may try, the mechanical industry, and that might be more of an interest. I mean, there's just a lot of different opportunities out there just to really get in there and try some things and just see what is that best fit. I thought I was going to be a chemical engineer when I came out of high school. Little did I know end up being in the electrical industry as an electrical engineer, but that's just getting your kind of feet wet in different parts or different aspects of different opportunities that could be out there. I mean, it could be construction, it could be, you know, any kind of IT, or any kind of really any kind of profession. Just kind of just trying things and seeing what fits, and whether you like it or not, and then try to once you find something that you feel good and passionate about, make it a career.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I love your practical advice, your leadership, your insights, your opinion about the company. Brian, thank you again for joining us. Your experience, clarity, and leadership really come through. It's not every day we get to hear from someone who started hands-on while helping a company scale to this level. And for the listener, the podcast is about real people behind the system we all rely on. And Brian is a perfect example of that. And if this conversation gave you a new perspective, share it with someone in the field or someone who's ready to get into it. And thanks for listening to the AI Interconnect podcast, and we'll catch up on the next one. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Appreciate it.
appreciate it.